Hello, my beautiful friends. I'm your host, Leah Cari.
And I'm Cari Kenzie. Welcome to Shift Happens. Discover the leader within. This podcast is designed to disrupt the way you live, lead, and love. At Shift, we challenge traditional narratives and believe that inner wisdom is the key to every decision.
Are you ready to explore a new paradigm of both living and leading? We'll dive deep into our innate strengths as women: compassion, curiosity, intuition, grace, vulnerability, and love. The shift, it's about to get real. Rediscover the power within and transform your life. Stay tuned. It all starts now. Hello, beautiful friends. Welcome to Shift Happens with your hosts, Cari Kenzie and Leah Cari. In today's episode, we are going to explore at least one of the most powerful leadership principles that I believe in that can truly transform your life and your business. Have you ever wondered why some leaders seem to unlock limitless potential while others hit this invisible ceiling? Well, it all comes down to the law of the lid. And this idea will change your life. It is the concept that your success in your business, in your organization, and truly in your life will never, ever exceed your ability to lead. Okay. So today we are going to break down not just what's kind of holding you back, but how you can lift truly that lid to new heights. So we're going to share 3 insights around this idea, all backed by research and science, and really invite you into the conversation as to why focusing on these insights are the key to your progress, are the key to kind of your next exponential growth, and how owning your own leadership effectiveness and the gaps will boost your ability to transform your organization and really amplify your mission. So if you are ready to step into your full leadership potential and start leading yourself and your life and your teams and your business with greater purpose and clarity, then you will not want to miss a single minute of today's episode. So let's dive into raising the lid, because the only thing that is standing in the way of your success is you. So what do you think about this, Miss Cari?
Oh my gosh, I love it. I love everything about it. I love the simple fact that it's so simple.
Yes.
It's so simple, right? The only thing that's getting in your way is you. And the only way to be able to truly achieve that next level of success, to break the glass ceilings, to raise the lid, is truly to lead better. And it's not necessarily just leading outside of self. It is, don't get me wrong, but it's a leading within self, right? It's really taking a hold of every key component of compassion, of vulnerability, of curiosity, of drive and motivation and alignment, all of those things that we talk about as it pertains to leadership, and really harnessing them within the power of self first, and then being able to express that as an experience out. That's the thing that breaks. I know when you and I were kind of teasing this out this morning, a conversation came back to mind. And it was a conversation I had with a woman, a leader, who runs leadership conferences as it pertained to that last glass ceiling. Mm-hmm. And she kind of threw me off, because when we were sitting, we're having this conversation, she says, we will never break through, as women, as leaders, we will never break through that last glass ceiling in my lifetime. Oh, why not? Like, I kind of sat for a second. I was like, well, that's crap. First, and second, like, why not? And she said, it is because that as women, as leaders, we do not have the ability, we don't know how, we have the ability, we don't know how, we have not learned yet the compassion, the vulnerability, the authenticity, the true leadership style that needs to be brought forward beyond competition in order to be able to sit in collaboration, to uplift, and to break that last glass ceiling.
Yeah.
She said, we just, as women, we don't know how to do that. We haven't been taught.
Yeah.
Actually, we've been taught the complete opposite.
Yeah.
That it's like, whoa, too emotional, right? You carry too
Yes.
much in. You feel too
Yes.
much. You share
Yes.
too much. Like, and then so we shut everything down.
Yeah.
Well, you shut everything down, your energy shuts down, your
Mhm.
success shuts down. The lid, whoop,
Yeah.
right?
Yes. We're told to adopt more masculine traits, to be more
Yes.
bold, to be more assertive, to be less compassionate and caring, because those feminine traits, they don't belong in leadership. And there are lots of women that are navigating this leadership role feeling incredibly ingenuine and authentic because they are being that way, right?
Yeah.
And so the conversation today, and I don't know if you've never read any of John Maxwell's books. He has several, dozens. And one of the things that he says specifically within this principle, the law of the lid,
Mhm.
is that if you believe that your leadership is, and let's just say, I know if you're not seeing me, you're just hearing me, let's just say that your leadership is right about at nose height, okay, with your left hand. Your success with your right hand will never go past your nose. It just won't. So that's how simple the concept is. And to your point, Cari, we haven't learned how to raise the left hand above the nose to the forehead and then way up over our head.
Mhm.
And so one of the first insights that I thought we could share with you all today is the insight slash strategy, if you will, to shift our focus from tasks to people. And I want to share a quick research statistic that I found when I was preparing for this podcast. And this is this. It's from Gallup, and they say that 70%, you guys, 70% of the variance in team engagement is directly linked to the leader. Okay. So leaders who focus on people rather than just projects and tasks foster stronger employee engagement. And we all know from the science that engaged employees, they're more productive, they're more innovative, they're far more less likely to leave an organization. And in contrast, when leaders prioritize tasks over people, they risk creating disengaged teams, which then again leads to massive amounts of turnover and massive amounts of burnout. And we don't have people enrolled and empowered and engaged in mission. So that is the first strategy that I wanted to kind of bring to you. And I want Cari's intake on what that means practically and philosophically.
We shifted out of purpose.
Yeah.
There came a time period there was a time period, I will say, that I saw more in organizations the ability to be, I'm going to say family oriented, where you really felt connected, you felt cared for, you felt seen when you walked into an organization. There was a time period, and I know very specifically within the organization, the larger global organization that I worked with, that was a feeling and that was a sense, and that there was a pride in that. And you really felt like you were part of something. Mm-hmm. And then we shifted collectively, and I watched it happen within this organization specifically, but we shifted out of purpose and we went into profit. It's the same thing as going from purpose or from people to tasks, right? Mm-hmm. We altered our perspective and we started focusing on the output. We started focusing on what it is that you're bringing to me, what it is that you're pushing out, what's the bottom line? What's my metric? What is this looking like? And we lost the people component to it. Is what we did. And that's where we're starting to see this disconnection now as the older generations, I will say, what they see a disconnection as a lack of motivation. They see it as a lack of drive. They see it as laziness. They see it as, oh my gosh, people don't know how to communicate. They don't know how to connect. They haven't been fostered into it in an environment that feels compassionate, in an environment that feels like it is very people focused.
Yeah.
So I would say that when you start to look at this, the way that I did it within my organization is it was people first, meant it was the staff first, then it was the client, then it was the profit. That's kind of the order of significance that we looked at it. Because if we took care of the people, if we took care of the team members and the employees, and they took care of the clients, the rest of it took care of itself.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think one of the ways to be able to implement that type of leadership is really shifting out of that task oriented, right, profit at all cost leadership into coach style leader. And I mean, Gallup also says that as this new workforce has moved from and since the pandemic, the workforce is motivated more by purpose over pay, which you alluded to, and it's motivated by life satisfaction over job accomplishment. And this was also an interesting statistic. They want to be coached. They don't want to be bossed.
Yes.
They want to be enrolled into their potential. They don't want to be told what to do. They want to be empowered. And this type of leadership is so effective, the coach style leadership. It boosts morale, it drives creativity, it empowers, it sees humans with agency and autonomy to be able to step into who it is that they are instead of redirected to where you want them to go or where you think they should go. And so I was interested to see what research would say about shifting from a profit-driven, very task-oriented, organizational chart-driven philosophy and leadership to a coach leadership style. And this is what, this came from the Corporate Leadership Council, that companies that create a coaching culture, right? A coaching culture, how cool, sees up to a 39%. Now, I don't know what 39% in your company looks like, but I bet you do. A 39% improvement in employee productivity and retention. So I don't know the numbers on what it costs you to hire a new person, but I promise you it's probably a big expense in your bottom line. And it is one that if you just shift from tasks to people, purpose, and move and shift from profit to purpose, you can benefit not only by seeing people as people and humanizing people and making people feel as if they're part of something, which will make you feel like you're part of something, but that you can have both. It doesn't have to just be, right? It doesn't just have to be profits over purpose, and it doesn't have to be projects over it can be all of it. It can be both.
No, it absolutely can be, but the issue at hand, the thing that we're seeing, and this is why we're sitting in this leadership crisis right now, is because when you look at tasks, when you look at profits and you see that above people, you dismiss the human experience. You dismiss what it is that you dismiss the wholeness of the person that's sitting in front of you. You don't even give yourself the capacity to be able to see the true gift that they have, or the perspective of like, they could do so much more. They could do something so completely different. They have this amazing idea that I know their creativity, if we just tapped into it a little bit more, but we don't give ourselves the opportunity to see that because we can become so focused on the profit or the task aspect of things. And you're right, like you bring it around, you bring it full circle, and you engage people in that leadership, you engage people in that potential, then they will bring forward to you everything that you need in order to boost and to create the success, not just for you, but for the entire organization.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Mhm.
good. It's so
Yeah.
good. So that's the first insight, friends. And like we like to do here, we like to give you a couple to choose.
Yes.
You don't have to choose them all. You can if you want, but if you would just choose one of the three we're going to give you today and really lean into it and
Mhm.
implement it in your organization, you would see a profound difference. And of course, if you want support doing that, Cari and I are here for you to go deeper outside of the podcast. But any one of these will have a profound effect on how you show up as a
Mhm.
leader, not
Mhm.
just in your organization, but in your family and within yourself. So
Yeah.
that was the first one. That was the first insight. The second one that I want to bring forward is this idea of owning, taking extreme ownership for what we call leadership gaps.
Mhm.
Okay. So this requires tremendous self-awareness, and it is if not the most critical leadership skill that's often not really spoke about,
No.
right? We talk
No.
about it. We talk about communication and decision making and empowering and engaging and culture, a conscious culture,
Mhm.
but we don't really talk about awareness. And so for this podcast, I was like, I wonder what the research says on this. I wonder. So when I wonder, I do some research, and this was fascinating to me. This was published in Harvard Business Review, and it showed that leaders with higher self-awareness, okay, and they define that by those who recognize their strengths and gaps more
Mhm.
often,
Mhm.
are more effective, obviously. But get this, 95%, 95% of the world's top performing executives, high performing, being
Mhm.
those
Mhm.
that have the success they want without sacrificing
Mhm. Mhm.
families, their relationships, and or their health. That's how they define, the Harvard Business Law defined high performing. 95% of these top performing, high performing executives identified self-awareness as the number one key contributor to success.
Mic drop. Seriously, mic drop. That
Mic
is
drop.
absolutely 1,000% accurate. And it is so rare to find, which is
So rare.
also why it is so rare to find those high performers, and the high performers in the way of not sacrificing, not
Yes.
sacrificing self, not sacrificing health or family or relationships or time, or the high performers have an ability and an awareness to be able to understand how it is that they are showing up, what it is they're contributing, and what their gaps are on any given daily basis. Now, let's double down on that, take it just a step further, because you can have an awareness and not do anything about it.
Mm-hmm.
The high performers do something about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a
But it's hard to
daily,
do if it's not brought to your awareness. But yes,
yeah,
1,000%.
yeah.
Yeah.
So not only do they have the ability to have an awareness, but they actually tap in and they figure out what those gaps are. They don't
Mhm.
use it as, oh, well, one of my weaknesses is this. So you just need to understand and know that that's one of my weaknesses. No,
Right.
right?
No.
No, no.
No,
They're like,
they own it
whoa,
all.
yes, like, oh, that's a huge gap. Now, let's describe gaps here just a little bit,
Yeah.
okay? Because gaps are really, we consider it's like the trench
Mm.
between where you are and where you want to be.
Yep.
It is where we get caught kind of in the path, detouring,
Yep.
stuck, not feeling like we're able to progress forward. 2 steps forward, 3 steps back, right? It's the limitations. It is the mindsets. It is the sabotaging behavior of the subconscious mind, which we talk about. It is the inability to take full ownership of where you are currently in order to be able to clean up and sit in the chaos to find the clarity on how to move forward. Those are the gaps.
Yeah.
Those are
Yeah.
the gaps. Bringing an awareness to them means that you become an observer of them.
Mhm.
So when you feel like you're bumping up against a wall, when you feel like it's just not moving the way that you thought it would be moving, it's not flowing the way that you want it to be flowing, then you're stuck in a trench somewhere.
Yeah.
And you just need to be in observance of it and ask a question around it. What the hell's going on? How do I need to see this differently? What do I need to do differently?
Yeah.
That's the awareness.
That's the awareness. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I mean, it was a really fascinating study. And the thing that they brought forward, which we know, because we talk about these gaps all the time in leadership, but the leaders that truly fail to acknowledge these gaps, right? From, like you said, where they are to where they want to go, they're the bottleneck. They're the bottleneck in the organization. They are the ones that are limiting the growth and the performance of their teams, themselves, and the organization and the greater good of the mission.
Yeah.
So now that we know that, and we know that awareness is key, and yet we go deeper here because that's what we do on this show. What do we do? Like, how do we get ourselves out of the gap? And the strategy that we wanted to bring forward for you today is self-assessment and feedback loops, right? Which give us an opportunity to check into how it is that we're doing, regularly checking in with your team and peers for feedback, not for you to give them feedback necessarily. How often do our leaders have 3 months, 6 months, annual reviews? But how often are they getting reviewed? How often are they having their teams, their leadership executives, their clients, their patients give them feedback, right? And so that is the invitation, and not in a way that is shaming, and not in a way that we feel belittled by or disrespected in, but elevated in the opportunity that exists within that feedback. And the reason why this was the strategy is because when I was doing the research around this was the most impressive statistic that I could find around improving leadership effectiveness, which was 60%. 60% of leadership effectiveness is improved. Now, there's lots of other ways to identify the gap, to address the gap, to crawl out of the gap, to get to the other side. But this feedback and self-assessment was 60%, that showed 60% effectiveness of getting you out of the gap, right? Because it's one thing for you to have an awareness of it and be like, oh yeah, okay, I see that's a weakness. And maybe, like you said, you just share it with everybody, like, hey, this is a weakness, so cut me some slack here.
Right. Yeah.
Right. So, but it's one thing to be like, okay, this is a weakness. And there's competencies that I can skill up in. Maybe I can get some mentorship. Maybe I can get some coaching. Maybe I could get some training on this. And maybe you do, and maybe you don't. But when somebody else gives you feedback, when your team members give you feedback, when your clients, your patients give you feedback on what you can do, and you choose to not do that, it becomes intolerable. And so you become more effective at embracing those gaps and actually coming out of it. So any extra thoughts on that, Ms. Cari?
Yeah, the only extra thing I would give on that is I would say, anytime, even if you don't have like this feedback loop of self-assessment where you do a 360, right? They call them, where your staff or your leadership is doing a review based on you and giving you feedback, because I mean, you're going to get some truth in that, and you're not. So let's just be real about it, right? People are going to say things and people are not going to say things because, again, you're the leader. It really comes down to you, and it comes down to your ownership. So just as I don't know, call it a shortcut in understanding if you're a bottleneck or sitting in a gap, then the conversation would be this. When you are having a conversation with somebody in your organization, when a team member comes to you, or when a leader comes to you and they have a conversation with you and you become elevated emotionally, you get a little angry, you get a little defensive, that's a gap. That's a gap.
Your gap.
That's your gap, right? All that is an emotion that's coming forward that's saying, pay attention to this. Because if you're feeling defensive or judgmental or like you have to justify what it is that's happening, that's a gap. And that is just an opportunity to bring an awareness around the energy or the emotion or the conversation that you're currently having, because you're getting that 360 all the time, all the time. But do you have the ability to be able to embrace that fully so that you can navigate to the other side and bring yourself into an energy that allows you to pop that lid, to step into that next level of success? That's the question.
That's the question. That's the question. I love it.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's
Bring
bring
it
this
home.
to
Yes.
the third one. Okay.
I'm
The third
excited.
one's probably not going to surprise you, right? And maybe you just think about what it could be, right? We've already given you a couple, but this third one is so important. And this is building a culture of accountability. Accountability. A culture of accountability creates trust, and it ensures consistent results, which is what every business owner wants. They want consistent results. Okay. So I looked this one up too. Like, okay, we're going to give them all the best today. Like the best strategies, the best insights on how they can, right, truly blow their lid off of what they've been currently limited by. Okay.
Yeah.
So this was from the American Management Association, but they said organizations that establish a strong culture of accountability see 11 times greater performance. So whatever your performance is right now, take that times 11. Right? If that doesn't blow the lid off of your ceiling, I don't know what would. 11 times by creating a culture of accountability. And we want to be confused by this. We absolutely do. We want to be confused about how do I have how do I hold my kids accountable? How do I hold my team members accountable? Are you holding yourself accountable? Right? And I'll let Cari bring this home, but this one is so big, so big. We cannot expect our kids to be held accountable, our teams held accountable, if we're not holding ourselves accountable.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. And you know what's fascinating to me is that even within the organizations, on the boards which I sit, this is a conversation. People want to be held more accountable. Create accountability groups. Would you create accountability groups? And then they do. You create an accountability group, and then people show up, and nobody allows themselves to be held accountable in anything. Right? I have to have this done within the next 2 weeks. And then they show up 2 weeks later, and you're like, did you get that? Nope, I didn't. I wasn't able to get that. Oh my gosh. We don't hold ourselves to a high enough standard in our own accountability so that we ensure that things are getting done. Because again, we slip back into the gap that holds us captive, that doesn't allow us to move forward. So all of this that we've been talking about today is a one step into the next step into the next, right? The accountability is the biggest piece. It is a self-accountability, which sometimes does need somebody else to be able to kind of hold your hand in. But ultimately, you're the only one who's going to be able to hold yourself accountable to the things that you say. That's what builds trust. That's what builds self-compassion. That's what allows you to have the awareness around what it is that you have going on so you can move to that next level. But we have to know that we can do that for ourselves, that you can trust yourself, to hold yourself to your word, to have the confidence that you need.
Mic drop. Have a beautiful day, everybody. You have been listening to Shift Happens. Discover the leader within with Leah Rolling and Cari Kenzie, where we help you reconnect with your inner leader. Learn to trust your instincts and live with authenticity and confidence.
Tune in every Friday at 11 a.m. Central Time to Shift Happens on Transformation Talk Radio for more insights, inspiration, and actionable strategies to live and lead, not only in purpose, but on purpose. It is time to embrace a life and leadership style that is true to you. For more information, visit shift.life.